The laughter started before the wind did. It cut through the cold dawn air like a bad joke told too loudly, echoing off steel crates and armored vehicles as the Marines gathered along the firing line. In the center of it all stood a woman alone, calm and still, her rifle resting against her shoulder. What drew the mockery wasn't her stance or her quiet confidence, it was the scope mounted on her weapon. Old, scratched, wrapped in faded tape like it had been repaired 100 times instead of replaced once. Is that thing from a museum? One Marine snorted. Careful, another added. She might have to crank it with a wrench. She didn't respond. She never did. She only adjusted her breathing and looked through the glass that had once saved her life. Her name was Elena Ward, though no one here bothered to learn it. To them, she was just another civilian contractor attached to a joint training exercise between Marines and Navy SEALs in a remote mountain range. Her file said, optics specialist. That alone was enough to earn raised eyebrows. Her quiet demeanor earned smirks. And that battered scope, that earned ridicule. What they didn't know was that the scope had a name. The day's exercise was meant to be routine, long-range target acquisition in unpredictable terrain. The Marines were confident, bordering on arrogant. They had the latest gear, brand new scopes that cost more than some cars, and reputations built on years of elite training. Elena watched them joke and boast, her fingers resting lightly on the rifle stock. She had heard it all before. Different uniforms, same voices. The wind picked up, sweeping down the mountains in sudden, violent gusts. Targets were placed across a deep ravine, some barely visible against the rocks. Spotters called out distances, 800 meters, 1,000, 1,200. One by one, the Marines took their shots. Some hit, some missed. Excuses followed: wind shift, bad light, terrain interference. Laughter faded into frustration. Then someone nodded toward Elena. Let the scope lady try. She stepped forward without a word. The rifle was an extension of her body, familiar as her own heartbeat. She lay prone, elbows digging into frozen dirt, cheek settling against the stock. Through the scratched glass, the world sharpened. Numbers weren't just numbers to her, they were memories. Wind wasn't just air, it was a language she had learned the hard way. She fired. The crack echoed once. The spotter froze. Hit, he said quietly. Murmurs rippled through the line. Another target. Farther. Smaller. She adjusted the scope by feel, not looking, fingers moving with practiced certainty. Another shot. Another hit. The joke stopped. By the time she cleared the course, the Marines were silent. Some stared at her rifle. Others stared at her face, as if trying to reconcile the woman they had mocked with the precision they had just witnessed. From the observation ridge above, a man lowered his binoculars slowly. Commander Jack Hale of the Navy SEALs had seen thousands of shooters. He had led teams into places that didn't exist on maps and come back with fewer men than he left with. He had learned to trust instincts over reports, and something about that scope had struck him the moment he saw it. He walked down the slope, boots crunching against gravel, eyes never leaving Elena. That scope, he said calmly, stopping a few feet away. Where did you get it? Elena hesitated. The past pressed against her chest like a weight. It was issued to my team, she answered. A long time ago. Hale's jaw tightened. He reached out, careful, almost reverent, and turned the rifle slightly to see the serial number beneath the tape. His breath caught. I thought it was destroyed, he whispered. The Marines looked between them, confused. Hale straightened, his voice carrying across the range. You're Elena Ward, he said. Call sign: Glass Widow. The name hit the air like a dropped weapon. Some of the Marines stiffened. Others frowned, trying to remember where they'd heard it. Hale continued, his eyes never leaving hers. She was the Overwatch sniper during Operation Black Crossing. The mission where we lost 3 teams, but saved 200 hostages because one shooter held the line for 16 hours straight. Silence. Elena swallowed. Memories surged. Dust and blood, radio static and whispered prayers, the weight of responsibility pressing down harder with every trigger pull. She had stayed when extraction failed. Stayed when her spotter was wounded. Stayed because leaving meant people would die. They called her the Glass Widow, Hale said, voice steady but thick with emotion, because every time she pulled the trigger, she brought someone home, and someone else didn't. The Marines' expressions changed. Mockery drained away, replaced by something heavier. Respect, shame. That scope, Hale added softly, took a round meant for her. Cracked the glass, saved her life. Elena looked down at the rifle. I never replaced it, she said. Didn't feel right. The exercise was called off early. No one laughed anymore. Instead, Marines approached her quietly, asking questions, not about the scope, but about wind calls, breathing techniques, mental endurance. She answered patiently, without pride or bitterness. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, Commander Hale watched her pack up her gear. "You didn't have to come here," he said. "You could have stayed retired." She slung the rifle over her shoulder. "Someone once stayed for me," she replied. "I'm just returning the favor." That night, the Marines gathered around a small fire. The mountains were quiet. The wind had died down. One of the younger Marines stared into the flames and said, "I guess gear doesn't make the shooter." Hale nodded. "No, the shooter makes the gear." Elena stood apart, looking up at the stars through eyes that had seen too much and yet still believed in tomorrow. She had been mocked for what people could see, but it was what they couldn't see that mattered most. The scars, the patience, the courage to stand alone when everyone else walks away. And long after the fire burned out, the lesson remained: true strength doesn't need to shout, and greatness often wears the most unassuming face.